Your 20s feel like everyone else got a manual and you got a blank notebook. That anxiety you feel when scrolling through LinkedIn, seeing people your age getting promotions, launching startups, or posting about their perfect relationships. Here's the truth nobody's telling you. They're all terrified too. They're just better at hiding it behind carefully crafted social media posts and confident networking conversations. Today, I want to share what your 20s are actually about, not what the highlight reels want you to believe. Because somewhere between graduation and your 30th birthday, you're supposed to figure out who you are, what you want, and how to get it. All while paying rent, maintaining friendships, and pretending you understand how taxes work. No pressure, right? The biggest lie we tell ourselves about our 20s is that everyone else has it figured out. But here's what's really happening. That friend who seems to have the perfect career, they cry in their car after work sometimes. That couple posting romantic photos. They had a massive fight about whose turn it is to do dishes last night. That person traveling the world, they're probably eating ramen for the third day straight to afford those Instagram moments. We're all just improvising. And that's not a bug in the system. It's the entire point. Your 20s aren't meant to be a smooth, predictable journey from point A to point B. They're meant to be messy, experimental, and full of course corrections. The people who embrace this methizes instead of fighting it are the ones who actually thrive. Don't think about it this way. You spent the first 18 years of your life in a system where someone else set your schedule, chose your subjects, and defined success for you. Now suddenly you're thrown into complete freedom with zero training on how to use it. Of course, it feels overwhelming. Of course, you're making it up as you go along. Everyone is dealt the freedom to choose everything is simultaneously the greatest gift and the most paralyzing responsibility of your 20s. What to study, where to live, who to date, what career to pursue, how to spend your time, what to believe in. These choices feel enormous because they are enormous. But here's what nobody tells you. Most of these choices are reversible. You can change your mind. You can start over. You can pivot. The permanence we assign to our 20s decisions is mostly an illusion. Remember when you thought choosing a college major would determine your entire life trajectory? How many people do you know now who work in something completely different from what they studied? The path is rarely straight, and that's where the real magic happens. The detours often become the most interesting parts of the journey. Your 20s are essentially a giant laboratory where you get to experiment with different versions of yourself. And unlike actual laboratories, failure here isn't dangerous. It's educational. Every job that doesn't work out teaches you something about what you value in work. Every relationship that ends shows you something about what you need in partnership. Every city you live in reveals something about what environment helps you flourish. But here's where it gets interesting. While everyone's telling you to find yourself, what you're actually doing is creating yourself. Identity isn't something you discover like a buried treasure. It's something you build through choices, experiences, and reflection. Every decision you make, every risk you take, every value you choose to prioritize is actively constructing who you become. The pressure to have your life figured out by some arbitrary age is completely artificial. Life isn't a race where finishing certain milestones faster makes you more successful. It's more like jazz improvisation where the beauty comes from responding creatively to whatever happens next. Some of the most interesting people you'll ever meet took unconventional paths, changed directions multiple times, or didn't find their true calling until their 30s or even later. Let me tell you about something I call the exploration paradox. The more you explore in your 20s, the more confident you become in your choices later. The person who stays safe and takes the expected path often reaches their 30s with a nagging sense of what if. But the person who experiments, fails, tries again, and gradually discovers what resonates with them makes decisions from a place of genuine self-knowledge rather than societal expectation. Your relationship with uncertainty in your 20s determines your relationship with opportunity for the rest of your life. Those who learn to navigate ambiguity become incredibly adaptable. Those who insist on complete certainty before taking any action often find themselves paralyzed by the complexity of adult choices. The secret isn't knowing the right answer, it's becoming comfortable with making decisions with incomplete information and adjusting course as you learn more. The most liberating realization of your 20s is that you don't have to get it right the first time, or the second time, or even the third time. You just have to keep experimenting, reflecting, and refining your approach based on what you discover about yourself and the world around you. Now, let's talk about something everyone's afraid to discuss openly: the profound loneliness that can hit in your 20s despite being more connected than any generation in history. You can have 500 social media followers and still feel like nobody really knows you. You can live in a city of millions and feel completely isolated. This isn't a personal failing. It's a predictable consequence of major life transitions in college. Friendships happen through proximity and shared experiences. But in your 20s, maintaining connections requires intentional effort. Everyone's scattered across different cities, absorbed in their own life challenges, and struggling to balance work, relationships, and personal growth. The easy friendships of youth give way to the more complex task of building adult relationships based on shared values rather than shared. Circumstances the quality of your relationships in your 20s will profoundly impact every other area of your life, not just romantic relationships, though those matter, but friendships, mentorships, professional connections, and family relationships all require a new level of intentionality and skill. You're learning to be a friend, not just have friends. The difference is enormous. This is when you discover that some people in your life were only there because of convenience or habit. And that's okay. Outgrowing relationships isn't cruel. It's natural evolution. The energy you free up by letting go of connections that drain you creates space for relationships that energize and inspire you. Learning to recognize the difference between these types of connections and having the courage to invest accordingly is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Quality. Relationships aren't just about having fun together, though that matters. They're about mutual growth, genuine support during challenges, celebration of successes without envy, and the rare gift of being completely yourself with another person. These relationships take time to develop and require vulnerability, consistency, and the maturity to navigate conflict constructively. Your 20s teach you that love isn't just a feeling. It's a decision you make daily through your actions, attention, and priorities. Whether we're talking about romantic love, friendship, or family relationships, the depth of connection comes from showing up consistently, not just when it's easy or convenient. The loneliness you might feel isn't because you're broken or antisocial. It's because building genuine adult relationships is one of the hardest skills to master, and nobody teaches you how to do it. But once you learn to create authentic connections based on who you really are rather than who you think you should be, the quality of your entire life transforms. Money in your 20s isn't just about surviving until your next paycheck. It's about understanding that every financial decision you make now is either building freedom or creating limitations for your future self. The money habits you develop in this decade will echo through every subsequent life choice you make. Financial literacy isn't just about knowing how to balance a checkbook or understanding compound interest, though those are important. It's about developing a healthy relationship with money that serves your values rather than enslaving you to status or instant gratification. Money is ultimately a tool for creating options, and your 20s are when you learn to wield this tool effectively. The most expensive mistakes people make in their 20s aren't the obvious ones, like buying a car they can't afford. They're the subtle ones, like spending money to impress people they don't even like or avoiding financial education because it seems boring or complicated. Every dollar you spend on something that doesn't align with your actual values is a dollar not available for something that does. But this isn't about depriving yourself of everything enjoyable. It's about being intentional with your choices and understanding the true cost of everything you buy. That expensive coffee habit might seem harmless, but calculated over a year, It could fund a weekend trip that creates lasting memories. The goal is conscious spending, not mindless restriction. Your 20s are the perfect time to automate good financial behaviors before lifestyle inflation makes them more difficult. Setting up automatic transfers to savings, learning to invest small amounts regularly, and understanding how debt actually works are skills that compound massively over time. The person who masters these basics early has options later than others. Don't. The relationship between money and happiness is more nuanced than either extreme suggests. Money doesn't guarantee happiness, but financial stress absolutely undermines well being. Learning to manage money effectively isn't about becoming wealthy. It's about removing money as a source of constant anxiety so you can focus on what actually matters to you. Here's something most people learn too late. Your health in your 20s isn't just about how you look or feel right now. It's about building the foundation for how you'll look and feel for the next 50 years. The habits you establish now, both positive and negative, are setting the baseline. Your body will return to repeatedly throughout your life. Your body in your 20s is incredibly forgiving. You can survive on pizza and energy drinks, pull all-nighters, and bounce back quickly from physical stress. But this resilience creates a dangerous illusion of invincibility. Every poor health choice is being recorded by your body, even if you don't feel the consequences immediately. You're essentially making deposits in either a health savings account or a health debt account, and the compound interest works both ways. Physical health isn't just about preventing disease, though that's important. It's about maintaining the energy and vitality that allows you to pursue everything else you care about. The person who prioritizes health has more energy for career growth, deeper capacity for relationships, and greater resilience during stressful periods. Health becomes the foundation that makes everything else possible. Mental health deserves equal attention and investment. Learning to recognize and process emotions, develop healthy coping mechanisms, and seek support when needed are skills that determine your quality of life far more than any external achievement. Your 20s often bring the first real encounters with adult stress, anxiety, and the complexity of emotional regulation without the safety net of childhood. The goal isn't perfect health or the elimination of all stress. It's building sustainable practices that support your well-being through the inevitable ups and downs of adult life. This might mean finding movement you actually enjoy rather than forcing yourself through workouts you hate. It might mean learning to cook a few nutritious meals you can prepare easily rather than attempting to become a gourmet chef overnight. Sleep, often the first thing sacrificed in busy 20s schedules, is actually one of your most powerful tools. For mental clarity, emotional regulation, and physical recovery, the quality of your sleep directly impacts every other area of your life. Yet we treat it like an optional luxury rather than a non-negotiable necessity. Your career in your 20s isn't about finding your one true calling and sticking with it forever. It's about gathering experiences, developing skills, and gradually understanding what kind of work energizes rather than depletes you. The old model of choosing a career and staying in it for 40 years is extinct, but nobody sent the memo to our anxiety about career decisions, the most valuable thing you can do. Career-wise in your 20s isn't climbing the fastest ladder. It's making sure you're climbing a ladder that leads somewhere you actually want to go. This requires honest self-reflection about what you value in work beyond just salary or prestige. Do you need creative expression, intellectual challenge, human connection, autonomy, impact? Understanding these preferences helps you evaluate opportunities through the right lens. Every job in your 20s is essentially a paid education, where you're learning about industries, developing skills, and discovering what kinds of environments and challenges bring out your best work. The person who treats each role as a learning opportunity rather than a final destination gains insights that compound into increasingly good career choices over time. Skills transfer in unexpected ways. That retail job teaches customer service and problem solving under pressure. That volunteer experience develops project management and teamwork abilities. That side hustle reveals entrepreneurial instincts you didn't know you had. Nothing is wasted if you approach it with curiosity rather than resentment. The biggest career mistake in your 20s isn't choosing the wrong job. It's staying too long in a situation that's clearly not working because you're afraid of seeming flighty or starting over. The sunk cost fallacy applies to careers just as much as investments. Sometimes the best decision is cutting your losses and trying something new. Your network in your 20s isn't about collecting business cards or LinkedIn connections. It's about building genuine relationships with people who share your interests, values, or professional goals. The most valuable connections often come from unexpected places and develop naturally over time rather than through forced networking events. Learning doesn't stop when you leave formal education. In fact, the most valuable learning of your 20s happens outside classrooms through direct experience, mentorship, and self-directed exploration. The ability to continuously learn and adapt becomes more valuable than any specific knowledge you acquire because the world changes faster than curriculums can keep up. Your 20s are the ideal time to develop intellectual curiosity that will serve you throughout your career. Read widely beyond your field. Take online courses in subjects that intrigue you. Attend lectures and workshops. Listen to podcasts that challenge your assumptions. This broad learning creates unexpected connections and opportunities later. Humility to say, I don't know, but I can learn becomes more valuable than pretending to know everything. The questions you ask often matter more than the answers you give. Curiosity opens doors that credentials alone cannot. Independence in your 20s goes far beyond paying your own bills, though financial independence is certainly part of it. True independence means developing the emotional resilience to navigate life's challenges without constantly seeking external validation. It's learning to trust your own judgment while remaining open to advice and feedback from others. Practical independence includes all those life skills nobody taught you in school. How to maintain a living space, prepare nutritious meals, manage your schedule effectively, handle bureaucratic requirements, and solve problems that inevitably arise in adult life. Each skill you master reduces your dependence on others and increases your confidence in your ability to handle whatever comes next. Emotional independence is perhaps even more important. Learning to regulate your emotions, process difficult experiences, and maintain your sense of self in challenging situations. This doesn't mean never needing support from others. It means being able to provide your own emotional stability as a foundation, while building interdependent relationships from a place of strength rather than neediness. The goal isn't perfect self-sufficiency, which is neither possible nor desirable. It's developing enough independence that your relationships with others are based on choice rather than necessity. When you can stand on your own, you're free to connect with others from authentic desire rather than desperate need. Independence also means taking ownership of your choices and their consequences. It's the difference between blaming circumstances and taking responsibility for how you respond to circumstances. This ownership mentality, while sometimes uncomfortable, gives you power over your life direction that external blame never can. Your 20s present countless opportunities to build courage, and courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action despite fear. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you're building this essential life muscle that determines the range of possibilities available to you throughout your life. Courage shows up in daily moments as much as major life decisions. Speaking up in meetings when you have a different perspective, asking for help when you're struggling instead of suffering, in silence, setting boundaries with people who drain your energy, pursuing opportunities you feel slightly underqualified for. These small acts of bravery compound into a life defined by conscious choice rather than unconscious avoidance. The social courage to be authentically yourself rather than performing a version of yourself you think others want to see is particularly crucial in your 20s. This decade is when you learn that the approval people who don't really know you isn't worth the exhaustion of constant performance. The relief that comes from dropping the act and showing up as your real self is transformative. Professional courage means advocating for yourself, whether that's negotiating salary, sharing your ideas, or leaving situations that limit your growth. The workplace often rewards those who speak up constructively, not those who silently hope their good work will be noticed. Learning to navigate these dynamics with integrity serves you throughout your career. Romantic courage involves vulnerability. In relationships, having difficult conversations instead of avoiding conflict, and being willing to end relationships that aren't working rather than staying out of comfort or fear of being alone. The quality of your romantic life directly correlates with your willingness to be genuine and communicate honestly. The courage to disappoint others in service of your own authentic path might be the most important courage of all. Your 20s are. When you learn that you can't please everyone, and trying to do so guarantees you'll end up pleasing no one, especially yourself. Daily habits in your 20s might seem insignificant, but they're actually the most powerful force shaping your future. The compound effect means that small, consistent actions create dramatic results over time. And your 20s are when these patterns get encoded into your life's operating system. Consider the mathematics of small improvements. If you get just 1% better at something every day, you're 37 times better at it by the end of the year. But if you get 1% worse every day, you're practically back to zero. The direction matters more than the speed, and consistency matters more than intensity. Reading just 10 pages daily compounds to over 3,600 pages yearly. That's about 12 books that expand your thinking and knowledge base. A daily 15-minute walk compounds to 91 hours of movement yearly, transforming your physical and mental health baseline. Writing 250 words daily compounds to over 90,000 words. Yearly, enough to clarify your thinking and develop your voice. The challenge with building good habits in your 20s is that the benefits often aren't immediately visible. Investing money, exercising regularly, reading consistently, or maintaining relationships requires faith that these actions will pay off over time. Meanwhile, bad habits often provide immediate gratification while hiding their long-term costs. The secret is starting so small that the habit feels almost trivial. Want to read more? Start with 5 pages daily. Want to exercise? Start with 5 push-ups. Want to save money? Start with $5 weekly. The goal isn't the initial amount. It's establishing the pattern and gradually expanding it as the habit becomes automatic. Your environment plays a crucial role in habit formation. If you want to eat healthier, stock your kitchen with healthy foods and remove the junk. If you want to read more, keep books visible and your phone in another room. If you want to save money, automate transfers to savings before you can spend the money. Design your environment to support your desired behaviors rather than fighting against it with willpower. Alone. The habits you normalized in your 20s become your default operating system for decades. Choose them intentionally because changing entrenched patterns becomes exponentially more difficult as you age and accumulate responsibilities. Here's something nobody mentions about your 20s. You're not just building a career or finding love or figuring out finances. You're developing your relationship with challenge itself. How you respond to setbacks, uncertainty, and failure in this decade creates patterns that will show up in every subsequent life phase. Your 20s will test you in ways you can't anticipate. Jobs that don't work out, relationships that end badly, financial stress, health scares, family drama, friends who disappoint you, plans that fall apart. The question isn't whether these challenges will happen. It's how you'll respond when they do. Resilience isn't about being tough enough to handle anything without feeling it. It's about developing the emotional flexibility to experience difficult feelings without being destroyed by them. It's learning to see setbacks as information rather than indictments of your worth or potential. The stories you tell yourself about your challenges shape your experience more than the challenges themselves. The person who frames a job loss as a failure stays stuck longer than the person who frames it as an opportunity to find better alignment. The person who sees a breakup as evidence they're unlovable learns different. Lessons in the person who sees it as practice for eventually finding the right match. Your 20s teach you that you're more resilient than you think and more fragile than you'd like. Both of these things can be true simultaneously. Acknowledging your vulnerabilities isn't weakness. It's self-awareness that allows you to seek appropriate support and make choices that honor your actual limits rather than your idealized ones. The most successful people aren't those who never fail. They're those who recover quickly from failure and extract useful lessons from every setback. Your 20s are the perfect time to practice skill when the stakes are relatively low and your capacity for recovery is high. Let's address something that causes enormous stress in your 20s but rarely gets discussed honestly. The gap between where you are and where you think you should be by now. Social media amplifies this gap by showing you curated highlights while you're living behind the scenes of your own messy reality. Comparison truly is the thief of joy, but it's particularly toxic in your 20s when everyone's paths are diverging rapidly. Your high school classmate who seems to have the perfect job might be miserable but afraid to admit it. Your college friend posting about their amazing relationship might be staying in it because they're terrified of being alone. That person traveling constantly might be running from problems they haven't learned to face. The timeline pressure you feel about life milestones is mostly artificial. There's no cosmic deadline for figuring out your career, finding a life partner, buying a house, or having children. These milestones happen when they happen, and forcing them to fit arbitrary timelines often leads to poor decisions made for the wrong reasons. Your 20s are also when you learn to distinguish between inspiration and intimidation. Someone else's success can either motivate you to pursue your own goals or make you feel inadequate about your progress. The difference often comes down to your mindset and your clarity about your own values and objectives. Focus on your own progress rather than your position relative to others. Are you learning and growing? Are you making choices that align with your values? Are you building the foundation for the life you actually want? These internal metrics matter more than external comparisons. The person who spends their 20s trying to keep up with everyone else often reaches their 30s having built a life that looks impressive from the outside but feels empty from the inside. The person who uses their 20s to understand themselves and make authentic choices might have a messy journey, but ends up with a life that actually fits. Your relationship with failure in your 20s determines your willingness to take risks throughout your life. This decade will hand you plenty of opportunities to practice failing gracefully, extracting lessons, and trying again with better information. These skills become increasingly valuable as the stakes get higher in later decades. Failure in your 20s isn't a detour from your path. It's part of the path. Every rejection, setback, and disappointment is providing you with crucial information about yourself, your goals, and your approach. The person who avoids all possibility of failure also avoids all possibility of significant growth or achievement. The stories you'll tell in your 40s about your interesting life will likely center around the risks you took in your 20s, not the safe choices you made. The adventures, the bold moves, the times you bet on yourself despite uncertainty. These experiences become the foundation of confidence and character that serves you for life. Your 20s are also when you develop your relationship with delayed gratification, the ability to make choices today that benefit your future self rather than just satisfying immediate desires. This skill determines everything from your health to your wealth to your relationships over time. The paradox of your 20s is that while you have the least experience, you're making decisions that will impact you for decades. But this apparent disadvantage is actually a hidden strength. You have fewer limiting beliefs, less to lose, and more time to recover from mistakes. Use these advantages wisely. The energy and optimism of your 20s are finite resources. Don't waste them on pursuits that don't align with your emerging sense of self. Don't spend this precious decade living someone else's definition of success or trying to fix problems that aren't yours to solve. Your 20s are preparation for the decades that follow. But they're also a complete experience in themselves. Don't postpone living while you're preparing for life. The balance between building for the future and enjoying the present is one of the most important skills you can develop. The person you become in your 20s isn't fixed or final. You'll continue evolving throughout your life. But the foundation you build during this decade, the self-knowledge, the habits, the relationships, the resilience, the courage, these elements compound and amplify everything that comes after. Your 20s aren't about having everything figured out. They're about becoming the kind of person who can figure things out as they go. The difference is profound and liberating. Trust the process, embrace the uncertainty, and remember that everyone else is making it up as they go along too. The only difference is some people are better at pretending they're not. The beautiful chaos of your 20s isn't something to endure until your real life begins. It is your real life, and it's exactly what it's supposed to be. Messy, uncertain, full of possibility, and absolutely unrepeatable. Don't waste it trying to fast forward to some imaginary point in the future when everything will make sense. It never completely makes sense, and that's what makes it an adventure worth living.